event. They call it the Battle of the Bay. This has been going on. Great charity happening out in Livermore. The bocce ball tournament that every year is sponsored by former 49er head coach Steve Mariucci, and of course the great John Madden on the left. Sensational to see him out and about again after some health issues, and they draw and raise a lot of money for some good charities. And of course we asked John Madden to kind of weigh in on the news of Dwight Clark this week.
Dwight Clark was something that it was a real special player and a real special guy, and his sports legacy is going to be the catch. We know that that'll last forever, but his life legacy was even bigger than the catch, as being a good guy. I mean, Dwight Clark was one of the real good guys. He's really going to be missed.
All right, meantime, as we move on, let us check this out. Maybe the best player in all of baseball, Bryce Harper, had an embarrassing moment here. Little blooper down the left field line. He's going to turn first, hit for second, and he makes the dive but comes up short. If you watch the replay, his helmet hit the back of his foot, and that's what caused the early problem. Hair looked good, and this is, you know, all I can say is I admire this fan right here. You guys played this earlier. Her name's Gabby DeMarco. Padre game last night. Makes the catch with her beer, and she will take care of business.
I thought it was a Bud Light.
I don't care what it was. She took care of that thing.
She did. Bye.
I was the same size all through junior high and high school. Oh, were you? Oh. Yeah, my mom was 6, so I knew I was going to grow. I have done that.
Yeah, the 5, 6, 7, 10, 11. Oof, yeah.
30 seconds.
I remember the first time Kelly asked me to do that.
And then I came back and did the morning
Quick
show.
turn of events in the San Francisco general election. Can you hear me? A quick turn of events in the San Francisco mayor's race. After opening a significant lead last night, London Breed is now trailing Mark Leno, all because of ranked choice voting. And there's still thousands of ballots left to be counted.
And the governor's race will feature Democrat Gavin Newsom and Republican John Cox. Learning more about the campaign strategies of the two candidates left standing come November.
And for the first time in 80 years, a California judge is recalled after he handed down a controversial sentence in a sex assault case.
Fox 2 News at 7 on KTVU Plus starts now.
The race is tight, and it could be several more days before we find out who San Francisco's next mayor is. Welcome to the 7 on KTVU Plus. I'm Aliana Gomez.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Malicote. The latest numbers were released just about a few hours ago. Showed Mark Leno with a slim lead over London Breed. Right now, he's ahead by just 1,000 votes, or less than 1%. And there are still tens of thousands of mail-in votes that still need to be counted. KTVU's Kristen Cafton spoke with both candidates today and the head of the elections department.
After a grueling campaign, the wait is still not over to see who will lead San Francisco. The Board of Elections saying the count is still on for some 47,000 votes by mail ballot dropped off at City Hall and polling places around the city, 14,000 provisional ballots, and 16,000 vote by mail ballots, all waiting to be processed through San Francisco's ranked choice system.
As far as the Department of Elections is concerned, the only time we project a winner is when I certify the election at the very end of the process.
So that means for now, the candidates are in a kind of limbo, the race tightening overnight, bringing them to within 1 percentage point. Today, both top candidates are talking. Mark Leno first recognizing the hard-fought campaigns of Jane Kim and London Breed, and saying with the latest results that he was hopeful and confident that he could lead the city on key issues, including homelessness, clean streets, and affordable housing. Adding the strategy of working with another candidate may pay off.
As a voter, I made it publicly known that my second vote was for Jane Kim, and Jane Kim made it publicly known that her second vote was for me.
London Breed says she's still confident despite watching an early lead erode after 9 rounds of ranked choice tabulations.
This is the system that we're working with. And so I think that that's a discussion we can have at a later time, but this is the one that we are dealing with as it relates to this race. So for now, we're stuck with it.
As for when the candidates may finally learn who ultimately prevails, the Board of Elections is saying they are working through about 15,000 to 20,000 ballots a day and will accept mail-in ballots postmarked on Election Day through Friday, meaning this race could stretch into next week.
I would imagine that this weekend would be the soonest that we'd probably have a sufficient number of cards reported for people to make projections about potential winners of any contest.
At last count, the candidates separated by just 1,121 votes. Now, the Board of Elections saying there was a lot of voter interest and a high voter turnout this time around. They're saying that 50% of eligible San Francisco voters cast their ballots yesterday. To put that in perspective, they say that's more than cast their ballots in the 2016 presidential elections. In San Francisco, Kristen Cafton, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Turning now to the race for governor, Democrat Gavin Newsom will face off against Republican John Cox in November after they emerged as the top 2 in Tuesday's primary. The lieutenant governor pulled in 33% of the vote. Cox, a San Diego businessman, drew 26%. Former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa was a distant third with 13%. KTVU's Christina Rendon tells us we're already getting a sense of the campaign ahead.
Looking up, and we down here.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Hey.
All's well?
Gavin Newsom was the center of attention, surrounded by supporters before walking into the Ferry Building in San Francisco. How you feel fresh off your win?
Well, it feels good, but I think it's pretty obvious. We're out here. Taking nothing for granted.
He and his wife shook hands, posed for pictures, and greeted voters over the lunch hour rush. It's his attempt to maintain his strong lead in the governor's race over Republican challenger John Cox, who spoke with us on Mornings on 2.
Mr. Newsom is a walking, talking special interest. You can see that with his finance reports. We've got to get the power of money out of our politics.
Cox says he represents true change, while Newsom represents the status quo.
I basically just told the truth to the voters of California. This state is now the #1 state for poverty. Most people can't afford to live in this state.
Look, a lot of these issues I share the same critique. We just have a different, different solution or different strategy, different recipe to address these issues. He's good at identifying some of these issues. I think we have a better approach to actually solving some of these issues, and that's what I want to focus on.
Newsom made light of a congratulatory tweet by President Trump to Cox, writing, "Please come campaign for him as much as possible." Despite California being a blue state, Newsom is not taking any votes for granted.
As California goes, so goes the country. I think he can inspire other governors across the country to really stand up and be proud of who we are as Americans and our potential to come together despite perceived differences.
Newsom said Cox called him last night to congratulate him on both of them advancing. He calls Cox a great guy and says this is a really good opportunity for voters to see two contrasting visions for our state. In San Francisco, Christina Rondon, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Santa Clara County voters sent a message on Tuesday with their decision to recall Judge Aaron Persky. 100% of the precincts have been counted now. The recall passed easily with almost 60% voting for it, 40% voting against it. Persky is the first California judge to be recalled in more than 80 years. He was the judge who sentenced a Stanford student, a swimmer, who had been convicted of sexual assault to 6 months in jail, a sentence many considered far too light.
This campaign really drove him into the polls. And I think the message coming out of this is if you are an elected official and you do not take violence against women seriously, then you will hear from women at the polls.
This is the first recall in the history of California that targeted a judge with a stellar record who did nothing wrong, had no track record of bias or misconduct, and made a lawful decision. So this sets a very, very scary precedent for state court judges in California and maybe even beyond.
Santa Clara County Assistant District Attorney Cindy Hendrickson won a separate election to replace Persky.
Democrats are breathing a sigh of relief after avoiding a lockout in some key congressional races in Southern California. Democrats had their sights on 7 key races last night, mostly in Southern California and one in the Central Valley. They were worried that under the top 2 primary system, the 2 Republicans could advance to the general election in conservative districts, but that didn't happen. Democrats are competing in all of those races. They need to flip 23 Republican districts nationwide to take control of the House in November. Just one of the 5 state ballot measures failed. Prop 70 was the result of a bargain between the governor and Republicans in the state legislature. Republicans agreed to support Governor Brown's cap and trade program, and in return, the governor put Prop 70 on the ballot. Prop 70 would have required a 2/3 majority vote on how to spend billions of dollars in cap and trade funding, but only in the year 2024. All other years would require a simple majority vote. Republicans viewed it as a chance to put the brakes on California's high-speed rail project, which is one of the governor's legacy projects.
How do you oppose, really good transparency and accountability provisions, which means, for us, that we're very concerned the money's going to go in the wrong direction.
Voters passed 4 other propositions, including a measure to provide $4 billion in bonds to improve water quality, provide flood protection, and to fund local and state parks. For up-to-date results on all the races around the state and the Bay Area, you can head to KTVU.com.
And we're following developing news in Antioch, where Contra Costa County fire crews appear to be getting a handle on a 2-alarm fire there. This is happening on the Pittsburgh-Antioch Highway. Earlier, you could see a big plume of black smoke rising up. It appears it's an auto record yard. It might have been involved, called A1 Auto Dismantlers there. Officials are reporting that a firefighter and 2 other people suffered some injuries. Pittsburgh-Antioch Highway is closed at Summersville Road in both directions. Contra Costa County coroner has concluded that the drowning of a student at San Ramon Valley High School was accidental and that there is no evidence the 15-year-old boy tried to kill himself.
KTVU's Rob Roth obtained the report and spoke with the family's attorney, who says the parents are angry at the school district for what it didn't do.
The Contra Costa County coroner has concluded that the drowning death of 15-year-old freshman Benjamin Curry here in the San Ramon Valley High School swimming pool last month was an accident during swim class and not a suicide, as some students had speculated at the time. That speculation of suicide appeared in some news accounts, including KTVU's, and that has Curry's parents upset, says their attorney.
It just makes it doubly worse, and they've been in pain as the result of the death of their son, and now they were also in pain because there was this false narrative out there that the son had killed himself.
The attorney also says the parents blame the San Ramon Valley Unified School District for not correcting the mistaken reports of suicide.
They let it sit out in the public for everybody to believe that this poor young man committed suicide when they knew certain facts contradicted that narrative, and they never changed it.
The coroner's report also says Danville police reviewed surveillance video of the pool. It shows Curry submerged as the rest of the class leaves the pool, but the report continues, quote, based on camera angles, it was unclear if Curry left the pool with the other students or if he remained in the pool under the surface of the water or if he surfaced in another area of the pool. Curry was discovered an hour later by the next class.
There was a lack of supervision in the swim class, and they allowed their son to pass. I mean, that shouldn't have happened.
The coroner did find traces of antidepressant medication in Curry's system. Quote, although Curry suffered from depression, there's no indication he intended to harm himself. The report does not say what caused the drowning.
We're going to be doing our own investigation, that's for sure.
The district says it won't comment on the criticism while the Danville Police Department is still investigating. That investigation is expected to wrap up perhaps by the end of this week. In Danville, Rob Roth, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Ahead tonight, a new approach by the FBI to prevent school shootings. Why the agency says it's already working.
And in weather, a bit of a cool down out there with more low clouds and fog already developing. What that means for your Thursday forecast, and we'll break down the timing of our next warming trend.
All right, Mark, a video of a crazy road rage incident in Sacramento showing one SUV ramming another vehicle over and over again. What happened to both the drivers? We'll tell you coming up.
My thought was just I witnessed somebody's mental breakdown, essentially.
Well, the FBI in San Francisco has launched a new team of special agents to investigate active shooter threats at both schools and other public places.
KTVU crime reporter Henry Lee spoke to a top FBI official today and has more on what they'll be doing.
Someone threatening to shoot up a school or workplace. That will now be investigated by a dedicated team at the FBI known as the Criminal Threat Squad.
All threats that are non-terrorism and are not dealing with national security matters.
FBI agents have always investigated these kinds of threats, but in the past, those agents were pulled off other duties and often just passed on those tips to local police. Now, those agents will be on the front lines with those officers.
we've seen a better result when all of law enforcement is partnered together to actually attack these threats or to analyze them and to resolve them.
That's what happened this past week when Snapchat alerted the FBI about a threat by a student to shoot up his middle school in Pleasant Hill. The FBI tracked the student's IP address and then notified local law enforcement.
These are not specifically federal matters, but we think that we have an obligation to the public.
FBI agents can check their databases and their counterparts at field offices across the country to keep people safe. Their goal is to quickly triage incoming threats, which in Northern California average 6 to 10 a day.
A decision must be made based on the information available. Is this an actual threat? And is this something that needs to be passed on? What needs to be done?
The FBI was criticized for failing to pass on a tip to its Miami field office about Nicholas Cruz before he opened fire at a school in Parkland, Florida. 17 people were killed. The FBI wants people to continue calling in tips, but just don't waste their time with false alarms.
Hoax threats are serious, and in addition to being serious, they are a federal crime.
The agents who are part of the criminal threat squad are scattered around offices throughout Northern California so they can quickly respond to incidents and threats nearby. In San Francisco, Henry Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
News tonight at 7. A suspect is in custody following a suspected road rage incident in Sacramento that was captured on video. You're looking at that video here. It happened Monday afternoon on a city street near Highway 50. It shows a man behind the wheel of a white Chevy Trailblazer ramming into a blue Honda sedan several times, as you see there. Well, then the outraged driver gets out of his SUV, climbs onto the other car, and begins stomping and kicking the windows. The Sacramento woman who took this cell phone video could not believe what she was watching.
My thought was just, I witnessed somebody's mental breakdown, essentially. What was he going through? Why would he do that? We don't know.
Police say the SUV driver, identified as 40-year-old Jose Alvarez, had drugs in his system at the time of his arrest. He's now facing felony charges of assault with a deadly weapon and vandalism. The driver of the other car suffered minor injuries in the incident.
CAL FIRE says it will announce details tomorrow on a lengthy investigation into illegal fireworks. Officials say they've arrested 7 people. They will release the names of those suspects at a news conference at the state capitol. Agents also seized more than 50,000 pounds of illegal fireworks, believed to be the largest seizure in CAL FIRE history. The agency said the ring was operating from multiple locations up and down the state of California.
All right, we're going to turn things over to meteorologist Mark Tamayo now with a look at our forecast, Mark.
Yeah, that cooling relief here. The fog is making a comeback. So,
we love it.
Yeah, I think we'll embrace it. If you're not a big fan of the heat. So, yeah, today we had temperatures in the 60s and some 70s. Not much in the way of 80s out there. In fact, you can just see the range from around 57 in Pacifica to 79 in Antioch and Santa Rosa. San Jose 70 degrees and Oakland 64. So you can see the main culprit responsible for the cool down, the circulation out here in the Pacific. You can see the speckled cloud cover out here, and this area of low pressure has been really impacting the Bay Area weather pattern over the past couple days, and it's going to stick around right on into the first half of the weekend. As we come in closer right now, we have partly cloudy skies, some fog, in fact, trying to regroup near the coast and near right around the bay. So that's going to be somewhat of a factor. In fact, let's see if we can do this, switching out the satellite, and we can kind of show you the color table here, just kind of doing this on the fly here and showing you this. There you go, some of the low clouds near the coast and near portions of the bay. So some of the overcast will be increasing once again as we head into your Wednesday night. Still a pretty good onshore wind as well. You can see Oakland, a westerly wind at 22 miles an hour. Fairfield, that's a gust out of the southwest at about 32 miles an hour. And some more reports for you with SFO westerly gusting to over 20 miles an hour. Current temperatures right now, we have 50s in San Francisco at 57, 60s around the bay, and Santa Rosa checking in 68 degrees. So that cool breeze really having an impact on the Bay Area temperatures for today. Here is our live camera looking out towards San Francisco. You can see out in the distance, we do have some low clouds already kind of creeping their way back into the bay for this evening. What is happening is this, and it's not this. In fact, a dense fog, it's not the case. The marine layer is deepening to up above 2,000 feet, around 2,500 to 3,000 feet. This will help transport that cooler marine air all over the inland hills. So as a result, we're not talking about much in the way of 90s or 80s. Tomorrow morning, low clouds and drizzle out there, and then still lunchtime, we could have mostly cloudy skies into the early portion of the afternoon. Eventually, skies becoming partly sunny for your Thursday afternoon, but keeping it cool coastside, upper 50s there. And then here's our temperature sensor warming back up. And the warmest locations inland tomorrow, we're thinking maybe around the mid-70s out toward Concord, Walnut Creek, and out toward Antioch and Brentwood, maybe a few spots flirting with the 80-degree mark. We'd have warmer temperatures for a portion of your weekend. We'll have more on that changing forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Some disturbing video out of Arizona. It shows police beating up an unarmed man who does not appear to resist whatsoever. Why the chief of police says he cannot defend those officers.
A San Francisco woman under arrest accused of dismembering her roommate. Up next, what she told police about the gruesome killing. A 47-year-old San Francisco woman is under arrest, suspected of dismembering her roommate's body and keeping it in her Mission District apartment for the past 2 weeks. Investigators say the victim had been renting a room from the suspect, Lisa Gonzalez, since last August. Court documents say Gonzalez got into a verbal dispute with the victim after she told Gonzalez she would not move out. Gonzalez said she thinks she, quote, flipped, but has no real recollection of what happened. Police have not named the victim, but say she had been reported missing since May 15th.
4 police officers from the Phoenix suburb of Mesa, Arizona, are at the center of a police use of force controversy.
A graphic video has surfaced showing them beating an unarmed man at an apartment complex after responding to a domestic dispute call. Reporter Madeline Rivera says the police chief of Mesa is promising a full investigation.
If you just look at the video, it's unanswerable.
I am disappointed in what I saw.
Mesa, Arizona Police Chief Ramon Batista unable to defend the violent actions of his officers as this video of a brutal assault back on May 23rd goes viral.
There is no explanation that you can justify that level of force.
The video showing 33-year-old Robert Johnson on his phone when suddenly 4 police officers pounce, kneeing and punching him, even after the victim falls to the floor. But it gets worse. The 15-minute video showing an officer shoving Johnson's head into an elevator door, even while he was handcuffed and zip-tied.
The things that he said and then leaning against the wall made the officers feel as though they needed to have him sit down. And so when he didn't sit down, they applied force.
Police say Johnson was with a friend who was allegedly trying to enter his ex-girlfriend's apartment. That prompted her to call 911.
I'm enraged. It doesn't seem fair. He told me that the cops walked up on him, didn't ask him any questions.
Police now saying they'll be making changes to the way officers interact with potential suspects.
We will not strike somebody in the face or in the head unless they are showing us active aggression.
3 of the cops involved are now on paid leave. 1 is on administrative leave. Police plan to release more video and details about the incident later this week. Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
Coming up next, Bay Area voters said yes to raising tolls on the Bay Area bridges. We're going to take a look at what's next now that Measure 3 has passed.
And President Trump changes how veterans are able to receive military care. Up next, what it means for former service members right here in the Bay Area. Back now to our top stories. The race for San Francisco mayor is still too close to call. Mark Leno leads London Breed by about 1,000 votes, with more than 70,000 mail-in ballots still to be counted. The close race is a result of the city's ranked choice system. Voters cast ballots for their first, second, and third choices in the race.
The race is set for California Governor. Democrat Gavin Newsom was in San Francisco at lunchtime greeting supporters at the Ferry Building. His opponent this fall is this man, Republican businessman John Cox out of San Diego. Mornings on 2, Cox called Newsom a walking, talking special interest. Newsom said he has a better approach to solving California's problems.
Santa Clara County voters decided to recall Judge Aaron Persky. The recall passed easily, with almost 60% in favor and 40% opposed. Persky was the judge who sentenced a Stanford swimming student convicted of sexual assault to 6 months in jail. Many considered the sentence too lenient. Persky is the first California judge to be recalled in more than 80 years.
You're watching the KTVU Plus at 7:30. And get ready for higher bridge tolls, Bay Area. Voters passed Regional Measure 3, which raises the tolls on all 7 of the state-owned bridges in the region. The measure passed with 54% voting in favor, 46 opposed.
The measure will raise tolls by $3 over 7 years, with the money paying for public transit and freeway improvements. KTVU's Tom Vakar has more on what type of changes we can expect.
The first improvements that'll get underway are on the rail and bus transit front, even before the tolls actually increase.
Within probably the next few weeks, Muni can pull the trigger and actually buy some additional vehicles. BART will be acquiring 300 some additional cars over time.
Those 300 new BART cars are above and beyond the 775 already under contract and will add a lot of capacity to future BART expansions, especially in the South Bay. But what about shovel-ready road improvements?
The first of those projects will get under construction in 2019.
Probably first up, more quickly finishing the widening of the clogged Highway 101 Marin-Sonoma Narrows. Expanding the SMART train north of Santa Rosa may begin next year. Work on the Cordelia Junction bottleneck on Interstate 80 could also begin next year. The addition of more express lanes that will eventually be placed on most freeways. Planning for a direct connector from 101 to 580 across the bridge to Richmond should also begin next year. Expect more emphasis on projects such as traffic over and underpasses that will allow trucks and freight trains to move more freely through the region.
That's a really important part of the mobility puzzle. Not necessarily big ticket projects, but things that make the whole system operate more efficiently.
Also coming, expanded regional express bus service to reduce congestion, doubled frequency of ferry service, new routes, and terminals in the North, Central, and South Bay. Improvements to bike and pedestrian access on and around state-owned bridges connected to bus and ferry terminals. And so, another buck in 2019, a second buck in 2022, and the final buck in 2025. But people are expecting that these projects are going to take place on time and on budget. And skeptics, like Congressman Mark DeSaulnier, are going to be watching like a hawk.
And a lot of those folks are people from my district who did not support RM3.
He questions many of the proposed projects.
The project list was devised more for political relationships than for what would benefit the commuter.
You can see a complete list of the projects on our website, KTVU.com. Tom Vakar, KTVU Fox 2 News.
It could be several more days before we know who won the race for Contra Costa County DA. The current district attorney, Diana Becton, ended up with 49% of the vote. One of her current senior staff members, Paul Graves, received 43% of the vote, with Lawrence Strauss taking 8%. Election officials say an estimated 70,000 mail-in votes and 10,000 provisional and conditional votes still need to be counted.
Pretty Near left the names of about 118,000 voters off the rolls at polling stations in Los Angeles County. The county clerk says the glitch affected as many as 1,500 precincts. Affected voters were supposed to be given provisional ballots. Well, last night, the former L.A. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa called on election officials to extend Election Day until Friday because of the errors. But the clerk says the glitch did not prevent anyone from voting. And a different problem in Amador County in the Sierra Foothills, where some of the polling places ran out of ballots. Calls started coming into the registrar's office as early as 3 o'clock on Election Day afternoon. People were allowed to vote using sample ballots. Amador County Register of Voters says they simply underestimated the turnout.
We tried very hard to work with our poll workers so that everybody had an opportunity to vote and that they knew that they, as long as they were there in line at 8 o'clock, that everybody would get to vote. It might not be on a ballot. We used sample ballots, facsimile ballots, and so that's some of our work today is to duplicate those.
It's not clear how many precincts were affected, but there are reports some people were unable to cast ballots because of the shortage. Today, the registrar said their priority is to make sure ballots are processed.
On this anniversary of D-Day, it could soon be easier for military veterans to get health care they deserve. Today, President Trump signed a new law aimed at expanding veterans' access to private sector health care. It's called the VA Mission Act. The measure builds on legislation passed in 2014 in response to a scandal at the Phoenix VA where some veterans died while waiting months for appointments.
And joining us via Skype is John Robert Unruh, a San Francisco-based lawyer who specializes in military and veteran law. John, thanks for joining us this evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us more about this legislation and what it means for veterans, especially here in the Bay Area.
The new law, what it does is it consolidates various programs right now under the VA Choice Program, various programs where the veterans can access health care in the local community and in the private sector. This will consolidate them into one program, and the goal is to streamline all the programs so that more efficient outcomes can be had.
And aside from consolidation, are we going to see any other changes, or what kind of changes will this bring to Bay Area veterans?
Right. Well, the new law sets out many standards of care that all VA facilities will have to comply with, including the facilities here in the Bay Area. And if the facilities are not allowed to or unable to meet those standards, then the VA will be required to provide care to the veterans in the private sector. So I think the most immediate outcome will be that veterans should have an earlier attempt or earlier access to private care if they can't get the care they need at VA centers.
And do you expect to see extra costs for patients, or would this be cheaper?
Well, I think everyone needs to take a wait and see approach to that. Based on what I've read in the law, there shouldn't be any immediate costs. But from what I've read just today from the White House, Congress hasn't really set aside money yet to pay for the new law, and the White House is directing Congress to find the money for the new law from other programs, including other VA programs. So while there may not be direct costs that veterans experience, at least initially, there could be indirect costs from services being cut or costs of other services increasing.
Do you think that'll prolong this whole process and make veterans wait even longer before they can finally see the the movement from this bill?
Yeah, well, the new bill sets out a one-year implementation program. So, the devil will be in the details as the VA now works on promulgating the regulations, and the various players, put their buy-in in the regulations. So how this really will play out, we may not know for another year or so, but hopefully, the changes will go into effect as soon as they can.
Well, I think one of the biggest complaints for at VA hospitals is seeing a doctor, waiting in line, that kind of thing, getting an appointment. So now they at least have options, right, John?
Yes, they should have options. And what the wait times will be under the new quality of care standards, we'll have to wait and see what the VA sets in the regulations. But the new law should help veterans who don't receive the care under those guideline timelines. They should be able to go right into the private sector and receive the care that they need.
All right, San Francisco lawyer John Robert Unruh, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Coming up next, a woman who served 22 years in prison on a drug sentence, nonviolent, is now a free woman. How reality star Kim Kardashian and President Trump teamed up to play a big role in getting this woman released.
And a speeding car loses control and lands on top of a carport. What happened when police showed up that now has the driver facing attempted murder charges. It was 50 years ago an assassin took the life of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and today his legacy is being honored at Arlington National Cemetery.
Fox News correspondent Doug McKelway has more.
It's one of the most infamous political assassinations in American history. 50 years ago, Senator Robert F. Kennedy was shot and killed after giving a victory speech in the California Democratic primary. Many called it the end of an era, but today, the RFK legacy lives on, with members of the Kennedy family, friends, lawmakers, and hundreds of others gathering to pay tribute to his life and work.
In the quiet spaces that rarely sought or got attention, Robert Kennedy found the arteries of our American heart.
Among those honoring Kennedy, former President Bill Clinton, who spoke about his newfound ability to recognize America's shared humanity after witnessing RFK on the campaign trail in 1968.
He did something unusual for a politician back then when you couldn't check every word every day. He actually said the same thing everywhere he went.
There are other events taking place across the country this week to honor RFK, including a special exhibit at the former Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, where he was killed. Visitors say, in a country still struggling with deep divisions, his legacy is just as important today as it was in the civil rights era.
It's very inspiring to hear his words and to see him changing over those years from his position of privilege to being someone who really empathized with the poor, with the disenfranchised.
The site of the Ambassador Hotel has been transformed into an education complex containing 6 public schools, each with a mission to teach and practice social justice. In Washington, Doug McKelway, Fox News.
Well, he tried and tried until he finally succeeded. The search underway for what they're calling the bumbling bandit who ended up burglarizing a convenience store eventually in Concord.
And in weather, lots of low clouds and fog out there. A bit of a drop-off in temperatures over the past couple days. Let you know if we have any warming temperatures in our 5-day outlook.
We have you. A woman who served 22 years in federal prison was released from prison late today after President Trump commuted her life sentence. 63-year-old Alice Johnson Reunited here, a lot of tears with family members in Alabama. She was sentenced back in 1996 for trafficking cocaine in Memphis, Tennessee. Reality TV star Kim Kardashian met with the president last week to lobby for Johnson's release. White House says Johnson has been a model prisoner who has worked hard to rehabilitate herself. A speeding car went out of control in Oakland
and landed on top of a carport. Thanks, Frank. Police say the driver then attacked first responders. The Nissan Altima was speeding southbound on Gulf Links Road when it turned up a private driveway. The car never stopped, launching off the end of the driveway and landing on top of the carport, as we mentioned. Witnesses say the driver then got out, tried to walk away. Paramedics arrived to start treating him, but police say he started assaulting the paramedic crew and an officer.
He was swinging the backboard at the fire department, the paramedic personnel, and Oakland police officers. Then he attacked the officer, physically grabbed the officer.
The police officer was taken to the hospital with facial injuries. The driver's identity was not released. Authorities say he'll face charges for attempted murder of a police officer and 4 counts of assault.
Some new surveillance video out of Concord from the Concord police shows a bumbling bandit doing just about everything he can to break into a convenience store. First, he will rip part of the door off. There it goes. He leaves, comes back, uses a rock to bash the glass door. Once he finally got inside, he made his way to the cash register, which was empty, by the way. Police say he eventually made off with about $5,000 worth of lotto tickets. Wow. Anyone that might recognize this guy, Concord police would love to talk to you.
Get a good look and turn them in.
Yeah.
All right, let's turn things back over to meteorologist Mark Tamayo. That fog out there at the end before we had before we went to break, that's pretty incredible.
Fog means business tonight, doesn't it?
Natural AC.
Exactly, yeah. So if the last weekend was too hot for you, we had temperatures in the 90s to right around 100 degrees. Fog is back to the rescue. So it has been another week. We're kind of following these temperature curves. Remember, just a few days ago, it was hot. We've cooled off. You can see temperatures go up a little bit on Friday, cool down a little bit on Saturday, and then trending back up into Sunday. That could be the beginning of our next significant warming trend, not so much by Sunday, but into early next week. Satellite showing you this. We actually have this weather system up here, up to our north, is actually responsible for the cool down here in the Bay Area. This big area of low pressure, some of that cooler air is moving in and actually deepening the marine layers. So that cooler marine air not only impacting San Francisco and Oakland, also impacting Concord, Livermore, Antioch, and Brentwood, even Sacramento as well. In fact, still some scattered low clouds from San Mateo to Hayward to Fremont. This will gradually increase in coverage over the next few hours because we still have a pretty good onshore breeze. You can see Oakland Airport winds westerly, 22 miles an hour. Fairfield, that's a gust, 32 miles an hour, and some more reports for you with SFO checking in and with the westerly wind gusting to right around 28 miles an hour. Current numbers out there, we have some 50s and some 60s. Santa Rosa right now 68, Hayward 60 degrees, and San Jose reporting 63. Here's our live camera looking out towards San Francisco. You can see evidence of the low clouds we showed you on the satellite. It's kind of showing up right here in this picture, our live camera, and there's the Salesforce Tower in the left portion of your screen right now. So we are tracking more overcast for tonight. That will set the stage for a mostly cloudy Thursday morning. Temperatures to start out the day will be most areas in the low to mid 50s. Here's the deal in San Francisco, 7 o'clock. Low clouds, possibly some drizzle, 53 degrees, and then we'll still hold on to possibly some stubborn overcast into the early portion of the afternoon. Then eventually we're expecting this. Partly sunny skies. Winds could go up above 25 miles an hour and a temperature close to 60 degrees. So somewhat of a cooler weather pattern. We pointed that out to you on the satellite here because this sky is up here anchored to our north. We're kind of locked in between two weather extremes. This area of low pressure up here, this warmer weather pattern to our south and to our west, and south and to our east. So looks like a bit of a warming trend on Friday, a little bit of a short-term bump in the numbers. And then on a Saturday, we'll cool things off once again. And then beyond Saturday, looks like more of a long-term warming trend. Looking to our south, the tropics in the Pacific here, just off of Mexico. Tropical storm Aleta with winds right now 50 miles an hour, moving to the west at 7 miles an hour. Here is the eventual track over the next few days, and looks like this will max out as a Category 1 hurricane. So thankfully, this remains offshore, but this could generate some higher surf with an increase in the south swell. So here's our forecast model showing you this. The clouds in the morning, skies becoming partly cloudy. Still some leftover fog near portions of the coastline. And temperatures tomorrow, upper 50s to the 60s to the 70s out there. So no major heat, no 90s, not much in the way of 80s. And the look ahead, your 5-day forecast, we have a little bit of everything. Warmer Friday, cooler Saturday, and then hold on for the
here comes
ride.
Monday, right?
Yeah,
90. Here we
could
go.
be talking about 90s by early
Boy, the
next
weekend
week.
was hot, and all of a sudden, we're gonna
It's changing almost day to day out there. Yeah,
keep you on your toes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, one of the great football voices of all times remembers 49er great Dwight Clark.
And more from John Madden with Mark Ibanez, who's up next in sports.
Yeah.
All these offbeat stories.
Yeah, let's talk about the Giants to start. Great comeback win.
Well, we won't talk about Mark's wardrobe, but you look sharp in a three-piecer.
Warrior blue, right?
Warrior blue,
Yeah, there we
right.
go.
But we're talking Giants with a walk-off, huh?
Yeah, you know, comebacks are kind of rare. Get this, the last 10 years, when they go to the ninth inning, trailing by 2 or more runs, 6 wins and 522 losses. So we had the abnormality today at AT&T, and the Giants are loving it. If you were looking for the game on TV, it wasn't there. That's because they broadcast it on Facebook. Thank you very much, MLB. But in the first, what you might have missed, Pablo goes deep. He is really coming on. He's hit 400 in his last 10 games. Red Sox fans are saying, where was this guy, huh? Third inning. Now the Giants are down 2-1. Andrew McCutchen starting to come around with the bat. Got himself an RBI double as Joe Panic high-tailed it home all the way from first base. It's a 2-2 ball game. Now we pick it up later, 3-2, Diamondbacks leading. Paul Goldschmidt just owns Giant pitching. Came in here hitting under 200. He had 4 hits today, RBI double. That's his second of the game. 4-2. Going to the bottom of the ninth inning with 2 outs. The Giants are trailing 4-2. And young Alan Hansen didn't start the season with the Giants, but he is staying around. That is a 2-out, game-tying home run in the bottom of the ninth inning. So they go to the 10th. Brandon Crawford. Man, there just isn't a guy in the major leagues hitting better than he is right now. The walk-off, Kutch will score standing up, and the Giants win it. And 100 games exactly left in the season, and the Giants are 31-31, just a game and a half out of first place. So hanging in there, and Mad Bum's back. Meanwhile, this is a true Bay